You're tired, I'm tired, everyone's tired, but why? Well, there are four big reasons behind this never ending exhaustion, and honestly, they're making our life way harder than it needs to be. And we're gonna break them down, and more importantly, we're gonna talk about what we can do to actually fix it. But first, I wanna tell you something interesting to think about. We are some of the most exhausted humans in history. Like, seriously, think of our ancestors. They were out there trekking across continents, chasing food across the savannah, and sailing across oceans, and yet, somehow, we, who sit at our desks all day with unlimited food at our disposal, are more exhausted than ever. How does that even make sense? What is so draining about modern life, and what can we do about it? Part 1. Why are we so tired? I like to look at things from a brain science perspective because who better to ask about exhaustion than the exhausted brain itself? And it turns out there are four major culprits to this exhaustion. The first is overstimulation and mental overload. Modern life bombards us with non-stop information, whether it's social media, notifications, emails, news, all the other digital noise, on top of the stuff going on in your real life, like clutter and things to do around the house. But our brains, they didn't evolve for this. Back in the day, our ancestors just spent hours watching leaves sway in the trees or waves crash against the shore. But now, we have, four screens in front of our face at once, and all of them are demanding our attention. It's like we're running a mental marathon every single day without a break. Your brain's prefrontal cortex, the part that handles like focus and decision making and impulse control, it's constantly overworked. It's leaving you just feeling mentally drained. And if you think about it like this, where like if you're running a real marathon and you never stop running and you never let your leg muscles rest, they'd be useless, right? They would be just shriveled and barely clinging to life. And the same goes for your brain. And yeah, that sounds pretty rough, but in part 2, we're gonna actually talk about how to address this. So hold on tight. Number 2 reason why we're feeling this way is dopamine overload, aka our broken reward system. So your brain has something called dopamine, and dopamine is the brain's motivation neurotransmitter. It is what pushes you to go do things. And the way it works is that if your brain wants you to do something, it sends out a bunch of dopamine, it releases a bunch of dopamine to get you to go do it. And the more dopamine it sends out, the more compelled you feel to go do it, the more urge you feel to go do the thing. But dopamine is a limited daily resource. If you blow it all on, shitty junk activities, it literally just gets wasted on those activities. And certain activities just burn through dopamine faster than others. If you think about like scrolling TikTok or video games or binge watching Netflix or, ordering junk food or binging junk food, these things give you instant rewards with almost zero effort. Now, why is that bad? Because when you flood your brain with quick dopamine spikes, meaning you set out to go do something and it's really quick to do, like scroll up on TikTok to get to the next video, you get desensitized. You suddenly just feel like normal tasks like working or reading or doing the dishes feels like torture. Or said another way, you blew your dopamine load on overstimulating activities, and now you don't have any more dopamine left to do the less stimulating but actually important stuff. You ever notice how doing chores feels extra miserable after being on your phone for hours? That's because your brain gets used to this high dopamine stimulation, and now everything else just feels boring and exhausting. Plus, after a dopamine high comes a crash, leading to things like brain fog, low energy, and feeling unmotivated. And this cycle happens, and if this cycle happens too often, your brain's baseline dopamine levels drop, making you permanently less motivated. But we can fix that too, and we'll be talking about that in part 2. The third cause of our tiredness is something that we all know about but don't like to talk about, is our messed up sleep. Our messed up sleep cycles, our poor quality of sleep. And we've heard of like the reasons. We've all heard of blue light that comes from screens that's messing with our sleep. But here's why it's actually a huge deal. Your body produces melatonin throughout the day. And that pressure builds up so that when we get to the evening, that pressure reaches a point that it compels you to go to sleep. But blue light tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime, and it messes with this melatonin production, making it harder to fall asleep and then harder to get deep rest. Think of it as like living in constant daylight. Like those, I don't know, asylum padded rooms with like the lights always on. It's a form of mental torture. That's basically what artificial lighting does to us. Our bodies just aren't built to understand what to do with that. And let's be real, many of us, myself included, have chaotic sleep schedules, which I've been working on. So whether it's like late night gaming, studying, catching up on shows, I get it. I do it too. It's like nighttime feels like the only time to relax and unwind, but this creates a cycle where we're stressed all day and then stay up too late to relax and then wake up exhausted and then do it all over again. And stress also makes things worse. So when your body is in fight or flight mode due to like work stress or money problems or doom scrolling or whatever it is, it refuses to let you sleep properly because your brain thinks it's in danger. So it tries to keep you alert because, there's like a predator around or something. And all these sound like a lot of big problems to fix, but again, we're gonna fix them in part 2. And finally, the number 4 reason we feel so tired all the time is our sedentary lifestyle. Your body thinks when you're sedentary that you're in energy-saving mode, and the human body is built for movement. We can do all kinds of movement. We make a lot of other animals jealous. Like we can walk, we can climb, we can run, we can swim, we can pick things up, we can throw them. We're crazy good at movement. But now we just sit a lot. And here's the kicker. When you don't move much, your body assumes you're in a low energy state. Like it doesn't have enough calories. And so it starts conserving energy as if you were hibernating. And that's why a day of sitting around doing nothing can somehow leave you feeling even more exhausted. And that conserving energy is also why you're like storing fats. So on top of that, a lack of movement also messes with neurotransmitter production in your brain, like making dopamine and making serotonin and all the other things you need for healthy brain and body regulation. So movement is also good to get the blood flowing, and it's what pumps blood, right? And what pumps blood? Your heart. And what if we don't move enough? It weakens our heart, which is a muscle, and we want that muscle to be a functioning, healthy muscle. So we need to be moving to get it, to encourage it to pump blood and be a healthy muscle. Pretty scary, but something that you have to think about. So overstimulation, broken reward system, your motivation, right? Terrible sleep, lack of movements. All day, this is our day, and it leads to us as modern humans being just so exhausted all the time. Good. Now to part 2, how to stop feeling tired. The good news is that everything we just talked about is fixable. That's great news. Some things are easier to change than others, but they're all ultimately something you can control. And if you make these changes, you'll go, I promise you, you'll go from feeling like a tired, stressed out zombie to actually having energy again. And it's life-changing energy, because trust me, I did the same. You suddenly just feel like you can do all the things you need to do without it being like a stressful thing. You can just feel like doing it. So let's talk about step 1. Step 1 is digital detox. Digital detox. So unless you're a doctor that's on call, there's literally nothing on the internet that needs your immediate attention. The content will still be there when you get back. And so I suggest trying for like 24 hours or 48 hours, just the one weekend. Step away from your phone and computer. Remember, your brain needs rest since it's running a constant marathon during the work week or whatever. Choose boredom. Be comfortable in boredom. Boredom is your brain's best method of rest. Boredom is better than overstimulation. So step 1 to getting back your life is choose boredom whenever possible. I know that sounds boring, but it's good. It's rest for your brain. Step 2 is to build healthy habits and routines. Lame, I know, it's going to sound cool in a second. So this is how you make chores interesting for yourself. So like without a phone, you probably get pretty bored, right? So what you're going to do is use your boredom to your advantage. You make a habit list. Don't make it long, just a list. The list of things you need to get done around the house. Whether it's dishes, laundry, cleaning, whatever. Sounds even more boring, I know, but your boredom is going to build up your dopamine supply, and then that dopamine is going to get you motivated to go do these things like make the list and then start to accomplish the list. So you're more likely to do these boring things like doing the dishes because you aren't blowing your dopamine on other crap. But here's the trick. Bonus trick. When you go to do the dishes or the laundry or whatever it is, while you're doing the dishes, in the moment of doing the dishes, you're going to hype yourself up. And that hype, and you're going to hype yourself up about the effort you're putting into the dishes. And what that does is that it tricks your brain into releasing dopamine for pleasure purposes during the actual effort that you're putting in. So that what happens is that the next time you need to go do the dishes, your brain is going to remember like, oh, the last time I did that, I got a nice little dopamine hit. And so it's more likely to want to go do the dishes because it remembers that. That's cool, right? All you got to do is like while you're doing the dishes, just hype yourself up. Like, I'm the coolest person, whatever it is. Just like make yourself feel good about doing the dishes. Another reason for habits is that building habits and routines offloads a lot of the mental load from your prefrontal cortex into other parts of the brain. So if you're doing the dishes on a consistent basis, then your brain starts to reroute that task from active problem solving to other parts of your brain, like your motor function. And this is how people do things blindfolded or on autopilot. Your brain has reassigned that task to like your motor memory and other stuff. And your motor memory uses way less energy than your prefrontal cortex. So in short, habits and routines cause your brain to spend less energy. It makes it an efficient system of doing things. And so the efficiency uses less energy. So step 2 is to hack your habits and routines. Step 3, I know I said this before, but I want to say it again because it's a good one. Get comfortable with boredom. Boredom isn't bad. It's your brain's way of resting. So instead of reaching for a phone, just sit, stare out the window, let your mind wander. This lets your brain recover from that never-ending mental marathon. Like if you feel so restless, go for a walk without your phone. Movement helps reset your brain and boosts dopamine levels naturally. And in fact, whenever you resist like reaching for your phone, it's rewiring your brain to not make that a habit. And it's building up your impulse control. It's building up your discipline function. Boredom, right? All right, so step 4 is to fix your sleep. So you got to figure out when you start to feel naturally tired and need to go to bed, when that melatonin buildup hits for you, personally for you. And you can track this a bunch of ways, but I just like to pay attention to when I'm like suddenly feeling that heavy net drowsiness, like your eyes feel heavy and you like, do that thing. That's the timing where your melatonin is starting to reach its limit and it's telling your body to go to sleep. And you have to take notice of that time on your phone and then plan to go to sleep around that time every night. Even if you're like an hour too early or an hour too late, it might mess with that timing. So you should really try to be as close to that timing as possible. And that's how you're going to get consistent sleep and high quality sleep. And it's also ideal to sleep in like total darkness if you can. Not pitch black, but as dark as you can. And keep your room slightly cool, and also to get during the day before sleep to get as much sunlight as you can, because that helps the melatonin production and it helps like encourage good sleep. So sleep, super important. Sleep is your number one resource or source of like naturally reproducing dopamine. You need good sleep to have a healthy amount of dopamine to get stuff done the next day. So super important. Step 4 is sleep is for the strong. All right, step 5, move more. Move, your body just needs it, right? You don't have to go to the gym for hours. That's, you can get there later. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is just move, whether it's walking, hiking, climbing, swimming, dancing, jumping, anything, just whatever works for you. The more you move, the more energy you'll have. It sounds counterintuitive, but that's just the way it is. And for me personally, the reminder that I need is that my heart is a muscle and it needs to be worked out. And if it becomes weak, it just makes it hard for me to move and then do a bunch of other things. Like I put a lot of value into the thought that like movement is to keep my heart healthy, right? And you don't need strenuous exercise. You just need movement. So then rather than think about, the pain in the ass of going to the gym, because I'm not a fan, I just think about not being sedentary. If you scroll on your phone, walk around the house while you're doing it. I mean, you try not to use your phone, but you get what I mean. Just try not to be sedentary. Try to move whenever you can. So step 4 is move it or lose it. Sorry, step 5 is move it or lose it. That's not complicated stuff. It's really simple in theory, and I feel it was clear enough that you can understand just kind of the rough idea of what you need to do, and those things will start to stack up. But it's going to be hard because you're going up against some of the most addicting things ever created, because social media, junk food, video games, all trying to overstimulate you and F with your dopamine reward system, F with your motivation. It's keeping you keeping up at night. Sorry, it's keeping you up at night looking at screens, and it's keeping you sedentary because you're just sitting down and doing the thing. But despite all that, you can win. You can be the person you want to be. There's that person that you want to be, sit around staring at screens all day. I probably not, right? The person I imagine I want to be is someone that has this lush garden that they work on and build a food forest and I don't know, do crop rotation and that sort of thing. I would love to be that kind of person. That's what I think about every time I'm if I'm sitting down staring at my screen this TikTok scrolling is not the way to become that person, right? I got to do these other things and break the cycle. And it's doable. I know I've seen change as I'm trying to apply all this part 2's suggestions. I'm seeing the change happen, and you'll see the change very quickly. And I encourage you to try starting with the drop-in overstimulation, right? Spend that 24 hours, 48 hours away from overstimulation. Just feel what that does for you and then go from there. If you feel that difference, you are going to start to realize the value in following these steps, and I hope it works for you. That's the end of the video. If you want more information about how to use your brain to power up your life, I have a bunch of other videos you can watch. Thanks for watching.